Commissioners, we'll go ahead and get started with the meeting. We'll call the roll. Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Farley?
Here.
Commissioner German?
Here.
Commissioner Goodrow?
Here.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yeah, he's here.
Commissioner Leggett?
Here.
Commissioner Lillard? Commissioner Lillard?
Here.
Commissioner Logan?
Here.
Commissioner Norton?
Here.
Commissioner Oglesby?
You muted, Claude. Here.
Commissioner Perkins?
Here.
Commissioner Powers?
Here.
Commissioner Reeves, Dale Reeves? Saw him here a minute ago. Hold on a second. Commissioner Reeves?
Which one?
Dale Reeves. Just one second, Commissioner. We're trying to get him unmuted. There we go.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. B. Reeves?
Here.
Commissioner Betsy Rice?
Here.
Commissioner B. Seals?
Here.
Commissioner Robert Sills?
Here.
Bill Walker? Mr. Walker's absent. Commissioner Larry Watkins?
Here.
18 present, 1 absent. Larry quorum. If you'll bow with me for invocation tonight. Dear Lord, please bless this group of gentlemen and ladies who decide the county's business as we go through and make judgments and decisions that will benefit everybody in Fayette County. Thank you for seeing us through the worst of times when we're about to come out of everything and get back to somewhat normal life. Please bless everyone who's here tonight and do your will. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Would you please follow me with the pledge of and join me in the pledge of I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
United States of America,
United States of America.
to the republic
to the republic,
which it stands,
For which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
Nation.
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
visible,
liberty, justice.
liberty, justice for all.
Thank you. I know there's a couple of folks there's some audience members in the courthouse is in the courtroom. Are there anybody who would like to speak to non-agenda item? Okay. Next item on the agenda tonight is the meeting, or I call it the meeting resolution. If you would, let me read it and I'd entertain a motion to approve it. The Fayette County Commission, in accordance with Tennessee Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 73, has determined that having this meeting by electronic means is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Fayette County citizens in light of the COVID-19 outbreak, that the provisions of Tennessee Code Annotated Section 8-44-108C, which addresses open meetings guidelines, are in effect, and the meeting will be conducted in a manner consistent with Section 19 of the Tennessee Constitution, allowing monitoring by the press. Entertain, can I have somebody make that motion, please?
Harley makes so motion.
Okay, do your second.
Dale Reeves seconds.
Okay.
Thank you. This will be a roll call vote. 1 second, please. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yeah.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard. Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Here. Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
18 in favor, none against. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda tonight says approval of minutes. You have in your packet the March 23rd, 2021 minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? Not hearing any. Is there anybody who'd like to make a motion to approve?
Commissioner Seals, I'll make the motion, we approve them.
Leggett will second it.
Okay, thank you. Again, roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Although 18 in favor, none against, motion passes. The second set of minutes haven't been totally put together yet, so we'll address those in May. Just let you know what one of the resolutions, the funding resolutions, were missing, but we do have the recording that showed we went through it, took the vote, and we have the documentation for it. So we'll come back in May and adopt those resolutions with a complete package. Next item on the agenda tonight is election of notary publics. Those are in your packet and have been reviewed by the clerk. Entertain a motion to approve.
Leggett, so moved.
Your second.
Rice seconds.
Okay. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan. Yes. Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yeah.
18 in favor, none against, motion passes. Next item on the agenda tonight is your agricultural committee. There are 4 nominees, and give me just a second, see if I can track those nominees down. Commissioner Reeves, do you have that?
Yes.
Excuse me, Commissioner Steve Reeves.
Oh,
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Looks like it's going to be Betty Parks, Debbie Moore, Commissioner Oglesby, and myself.
I believe you're correct. Those names have been recommended by the Agriculture Committee and has gone through, I believe, Health and Welfare?
Development.
Development, excuse me, the wrong committee again. That'd be Commissioner Farley's committee.
And it comes to the board, it comes to the commission as a motion from the development board, those 4 names, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Seconded by Jarman.
Okay, we'll take those all in one bunch as a recommendation. And this will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yeah.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Pass.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins. Commissioner Watkins?
Yes.
Okay. 17 in favor, none against, and 1 abstention. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda tonight is the redistricting committee. The last member of the redistricting committee was the school board representative, and the school board met and recommended Ms. Alicia Logan, who's a school board member, to represent that slot on the redistricting committee. Just to refresh your memory, there's 1 county commissioner, 1 school board member, myself, Mr. Josh Tapp, who's Administrator of Elections, and Mr. Vip Lewis, who is a former clerk and master and county commissioner. And I can give you more on the details on that one during my report. But anyway, Ms. Alicia Logan comes as a recommendation, has gone through budget because education didn't meet. Well, excuse me, I think it came straight to the committee, straight to the commission as a recommendation from the school board. So I'd entertain that as a motion by someone if they'd like to make it.
No, Commissioner Norton so moves.
Okay.
Dale Reeves seconds.
Okay. Okay, a roll call vote also. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German, Commissioner German,
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
okay. Commissioner Goodrow,
Abstain.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Abstain.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins, Commissioner Powers,
Abstain.
Commissioner Reeves, Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yeah.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yeah. .15
in favor, none against, and 3 abstentions. Motion passes. The next item on the agenda tonight is the appointment of the vacant school board position District 3. Earlier today, I sent out information that was received from the Election Commission where they had certified 3 individuals, Mr. Warner Speakman, Ms. Wanda Keith, and Ms. Melanie McGuire. Only a person who is nominated by a commissioner can be voted upon. And any nominee tonight, I'll give 3 minutes to sort of talk or introduce themselves and make any comments they'd like to. The floor is now open for any nominations.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Leggett. I'd like to nominate Warner Speakman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Oglesby. I'd like to nominate Ms. Melanie McGuire.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Reeves, I'd like to nominate Wanda Keith.
Okay. And since those are all the nominees we could vote on tonight, we'll close the nomination process then. All right, give me just a second to walk out there and see if there's any of these candidates in the audience, and then I'll get them in front of the camera so that they can talk and see everybody online, and the folks in the audience can ask questions as well as you if you have any afterwards. Give me just a second, please. Come on up, and I'm gonna give you just a couple of minutes. If you can see yourself in there, they can see you. So you may have to step up, might make it a little more comfortable. There you go. And just give you about 3 minutes to introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Melanie McGuire. I reside in Moscow, Tennessee. I am a former employee of Fayette County Schools, where I was employed as a professional school counselor for over 15 years. I am an advocate of teachers. I am an advocate of students, and I am an advocate of this community. I would like to have the opportunity to represent on Board 3 for Fayette County Schools District. I have an education background. I have been in education over 17 years. By me residing in the community, I feel I would be a great candidate for this position. And I just ask for your vote for District 3, School Board Member Melanie McGuire. Thank you.
Is Mr. Keith in the audience? Keith, you like to come and speak? We don't get too fancy on this. You can see yourself in there, they can see you. Just speak into it and see yourself.
Good evening. My name is Wanda Keith. That's Keath. I'm a resident of Fayette County. I live at 4780 Highway 195, Somerville, Tennessee. I'm a lifelong member of this community. I'm a graduate of Fayette Comprehensive High School, class of 1989. I work for LeBonner's Children's Hospital. I am a social worker, a licensed master social worker. I'm a licensed school social worker, as well as I have a certification as a certified brain injury specialist. I am very proactive in the community. I'm very involved. I love children. I work with children every day throughout my career as a social worker. And it's just an honor to be able to present myself to you, for you to see me and to know who I am. will work and do a good job as a board member for the District 3 if given the opportunity. And I'd like to thank you all for your time. Have a good evening.
I'm back in front of you now. Mr. Speakman was not in the audience. So Ms. McGuire and Ms. Keith was there. Was there any questions from the commissioners prior to voting?
Mayor Taylor, Commissioner Powers here.
Commissioner Powers?
Yes, just one quick question. Are any of the three of them planning on running for the seat when it goes on the elections?
Mr. Speakman's not here, but let me get a hold of the audience.
Asking if you were planning on running for the position if you got it. And I think they'd like to know.
Melanie McGuire, yes, I do plan on running.
Wanda Keith, yes, I do plan on running.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay, Commissioner
Mr.
Lake, I
Chairman?
saw your name. Yes, sir.
Can I speak on behalf of Mr. Speakman since I nominated him?
I don't think you can obligate him to anything, but you can speak on his behalf, I guess, somewhat.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to give something to the commissioners about his experience. Mr. Speakman is basically a contractor. He oversaw the construction of the new school, Buckley Carpenter, and he's very familiar with Fayette County schools as he's been involved in the construction phase of the schools, and he works very closely with our new superintendent. And I would hope, and I've had a lot of conversation with him. He's very involved in trying to help the schools get through the desegregation order and get that gone away. And I think he'd be an asset to the school board because so much of what the school board does doesn't really affect the learning of the kids. It's facility management and running the operations as opposed to the actual academics and the education. That is taken care of by the superintendent and the teachers. I would appreciate everyone's consideration, Mr. Speaker.
That's great.
Any other questions? Okay, this will be a roll call vote. And if when your name is called, if you would just simply tell me the candidate you would like to vote for. Commissioner Dacus,
Melanie McGuire.
Commissioner Farley,
Ms. McGuire,
Commissioner German,
Melanie McGuire.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Warner Speakman.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Jordan, I didn't understand you. McGuire, okay. Commissioner Leggett,
Speakman.
Commissioner Lillard, okay. Commissioner Logan,
McGuire.
Commissioner Norton,
Speakman.
Commissioner Oglesby,
McGuire.
Commissioner Perkins, Commissioner Powers,
Speakman.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
McGuire.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Ms. Keith,
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
McGuire,
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Mr. McGuire.
excuse me, Commissioner Seals,
Mr. McGuire.
okay. Commissioner Robert Sills,
Mr. Speakman.
Commissioner Watkins.
McGuire.
Okay. Does anyone wish to change their vote? All right, the results are 5 for Mr. Speakman, 12 for Ms. McGuire, 1 for Ms. Keith. Ms. McGuire has been appointed to the position which she will serve until next August when the election will be held. Congratulations, Ms. McGuire. All right, the next item on the agenda tonight are financial reports. If you've got any comments or questions, if you please go with the appropriate official. The next thing is mayor's report. Just a few things before we get into the bulk of the meeting. Is Governor Lee came down today with his order, or an order basically saying that his orders, local orders, have all been relaxed or done away, will expire as of midnight tomorrow night. Any sort of authority for mask or protection precautions or anything locally are done away with. All the electronic meetings we've been having so much fun having for the last year. From now on, we will be in person, and starting actually next week, because our budget committees start next week, I believe Monday and Tuesday and next Thursday. So I'll get with y'all the appropriate committees. Those are also on the calendar, budget calendar. He has also removed all recommendations such as the Tennessee plan, so that businesses had some sort of guidelines. All that has been removed. Most of his overrides, and there were a number of different agencies that they either delayed, removed, suspended, or something. A lot of that has been removed. There's some that'll be running through the end of next month, but I think those are just so folks can they have to have a period of time to get back going. I think that's what that is about. So that's where we are with the governor's mandates. He is pretty much has ended the, I guess, emergency status of the state as far as COVID is concerned. Currently, we're doing pretty good as far as things have gone. We've got 85 cases, active cases. We've had a little Easter bump that is sort of plateauing, and I feel sure it's be coming down shortly, of about 5 cases per day new. We haven't quite hit 5,000 cases countywide, which is good. And our vaccinations, for those who want one, or if you know somebody wants one, they're available at the health department, and they're available at Walgreens and Walmart and a number of doctor's offices. In fact, it's pretty close to 50-50 about where folks are getting those. And also in the governor's statement, he said that there will be a walk-up option if somebody wants to go to the health department to get a vaccination. Clarification from the health department was that if somebody wants to walk in, they sort of take the chances. If you can still call for an appointment. If you call for an appointment to get the vaccination, there will be a shot waiting on you. If you just happen to drive by and want to drop in and get one, if there is extra, you'll be given one. If not, you'll be asked to come back at a later time or make an appointment at that time. So you can let folks who know, let folks who know who are interested, that's the case now. We're about 35% of everybody in the county has received at least one shot. About 24% of those have received 2 shots. And as far as West Tennessee goes, Fayette County is doing great. Beating everybody except for Madison County. That's been a hard push on getting vaccinations out. And Henry County is another one that's sort of similar to our situation. So we're about as close to the end of this as possible without being totally over it. Next thing I want to sort of bring to your attention is that we've got a couple of projects that I want to tell you about. We're going to go ahead and start getting some estimates for. We have 2 roofs that have gotten to the point we've got to do something with. One is a library and one is the health department. We've got funding in place at the correct items in capital projects fund. Those were the money that was put there was for maintenance and for construction. These two have sort of risen to the top on things we need to be doing. So we will go out for bids. Once we get some estimates on, or get some description of what we've got to have, we'll go out and get some bids. Now, as long as we keep this below $50,000, it can be done as a repair, and we won't have to incur any architectural or engineering fees. If one of these goes over, then we'll be coming back to the commission to first off let you know, and I will be letting you know what we're doing, but probably get approval for hiring whoever we need to move forward with those. But next couple of weeks, we should get some information that we can take care of both of those. And lastly, I had a conversation today with the folks at the comptroller's office on redistricting. Tennessee got, as I think most of you have heard over the last day or so, the federal numbers for all the states have come in, and some southern, I think mountain states did very well. We will not be getting our numbers till sometime in September. Let me back up a second. The state will not be getting our numbers until sometime in September. We will not be getting our numbers until sometime in October to November, with the possibility of having primaries. The calendar in Nashville works differently than it does in Fayette County, because I'm down to about 2 weeks to do this and get input from the commission and get approval for it. So needless to say, I think we've got some good folks in the redistricting committee, but the committee's going to be working hard during that 2, 3, 4 week period. And there may be actually a special call meeting, at least one, for the commission to either vote on or to have some input on the redistricting. If past experience is anything to be guiding us, is that there'll be a couple of plans discussed before one is agreed upon. So anyway, I'm just giving you sort of updates. We will probably get with the committee and do some education so that when we do get the information, we can sort of hit the ground running. And if you got some, and if anybody would like to attend any of the educational webinars or anything from the comptroller's office, please let me know and I'll make sure that you have access to it at the same time they do. Anything we can get into people's hands prior to it so that we answer questions before they're asked will make the process run much smoother. Next thing we've got on the agenda tonight is Sheriff's Office. I think Mr. Garcia was in the audience. He may have left for a little bit. Dr. Hamlet, I believe, is on. Dr. Hamlet, do you have anything you'd like to address the commission?
No, I just want to say thank you for giving us a new board member. So I appreciate your support there. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works, Mr. Dowdy is in the office, superintendent. Does he have anything he needs to say?
I don't have anything at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Pittner, I don't believe is in the audience right now. Next item on the agenda tonight is the Development Committee, Commissioner Farley.
Yes, sir. Development Committee met on April the 12th. Present was Mr. Reeves, Powers, Mr. Walker, Seals, Logan, and myself. The first 6 things on the list will be covered by the Budget Committee later on. And the last thing that was on the list, we already voted on the Agriculture Committee nominee, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda tonight, Health and Welfare Committee, Steve Reeves.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The Health and Welfare met April 12th. Commissioners present were Leggett, Journey, Director Miller reported that we had 394 calls in March. Looks like he's targeting for revenue for the year ending June 30th of 1.7 million. That's about what we had budgeted. We started looking at some designs on the animal shelter. This will be an ongoing process for several months, so we will meet next month and start looking at that. The mayor had a few designs. And we also talked about an animal housing ordinance And then we will discuss that again once we are able to meet in person. So that'll come up in the next couple of months also. That's all we have.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda tonight is Personnel Committee. Okay. Education Committee, Commissioner Dacus.
We did not meet, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Next item is Criminal Justice Public Safety Committee, Ms. Rice, Commissioner Rice.
Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee met on April 13th by Zoom. Present were Commissioners Goodrow, Leggett, Norton, Perkins, and Rice. We reviewed the sheriff's report, and the only other business excuse me, was consideration of a resolution which had been introduced by Commissioner Powers. It's a resolution in support of Marcy's Law, which is a victims' rights proposed constitutional amendment. After discussion and presentation from Marianne Donovan and a good bit of discussion, there was a roll call vote, and the committee voted to recommend adoption of this resolution.
Okay. Motion's made. Is there a second?
Commissioner Powers here, I second.
Okay. Just a second. I'm trying to get my roll call pages pulled together.
Mayor, I have a question.
All right. Yes, sir. Who Commissioner Farley? Okay.
Yes. Did the district attorney for our area have anything to say about this, or was asked about this Marcy's Law?
I think Commissioner Rice may have had a conversation with him. Looks like Commissioner Rice.
I did speak to him briefly about it some time ago, and he indicated that he would let the district attorney's conference, I think, speak for him. Don't know that he wanted to get involved in it one way or the other at that time, but it's been several weeks since I talked with him.
Okay. Any other commissioners got a comment?
I do, yes. I am opposed to this resolution for many, many reasons. I'll try to narrow this down just to the issues of need and cost. We don't need to toy with our Constitution because we already have a similar constitutional amendment regarding victims' rights. That amendment has been in place since 1998. There are a number of states, I think, that don't have an amendment regarding victims' rights, but we have had this for a long, long time. And it was in effect for the last 8 years of my term as district attorney. So I have worked with this did work with it for some time. If any additional, this new amendment, proposed amendment is very similar to the one that we already have. It has a couple of additional items, but if those additional protections are needed for victims, if they are truly needed, they can be provided by statute during any legislative session. And those protections, if they're truly needed, ought not to be delayed till 2026 or 2027 while this constitutional amendment process plays out. They could go ahead and be adopted by the legislature and by statute. So we don't really need to toy with our Constitution. We don't need to urge our legislatures to change our Constitution. We don't have a local problem. We are, after all, we're local government. And we have not had any constituent complaints, as far as I know, or any problem here locally. So this is not something that we need to adopt. We don't need a constitutional amendment, which is going to affect not only courts and prosecutors, but also every segment of the criminal justice system, which would include sheriff, police, TBI, anybody involved with criminal justice. And the proposals, the new proposals in this resolution would add additional notices, additional courts, some effort to enforce the amendment by having do-overs of hearings. If a victim hadn't been notified about a hearing and wanted to be there, would expect that the court would do over a hearing. That's just impossible to imagine that would happen. Also, they want to attempt to balance their interests against the defendants, which I think would overturn hundreds of years of legal precedent. Another thing we don't know about is cost. They've not presented any estimate of what it will cost to hire the additional personnel and space to provide space for the additional personnel that would be required to do what they want to do. Now, this body is not known for embracing projects which aren't needed or for which we don't know the cost. This proposal did not originate in Fayette County. It didn't even originate in Tennessee. It's a political stunt led by a billionaire California crusader. I'm not going to follow his lead, and I would not ask our legislators to follow his lead, and I will vote no on this proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Leggett?
I appreciate the comments from Commissioner Rice. I don't know how many of the commissioners have ever been a victim of a crime. I spent about 44 years working at the sheriff's office, and a lot of that time is working in homicide. Worked very closely with victims. This law, as it is drafted, I don't care where it came from, it's something that is needed. How often do you hear people come to you or to say that the perpetrator of crimes have all the rights? The law looks out for them. And the Constitution does look out for the rights of the accused. But I'm one of those people that I want something to look out for the rights of the victims and the families of victims. This is all this law or this resolution does. It asks all the legislators to look at it to where it's an even playing field, that if you're a victim of a crime, you have certain constitutional rights in the system. You don't get to choose your attorney if you're a victim of a crime. You're saddled with the district attorney. And if the district attorney, if all they worry about is cost, they're not a prosecutor, they are an accountant with a law degree. And I feel that to be even and fair, everybody that goes into court, whether you're a victim or a defendant, should have certain rights that are protected by the Constitution of the state and of course, the federal government. I don't see any problem with this. We didn't have a problem when Miranda came around. I was in law enforcement before Miranda, and after Miranda, we just adopted it, and it became part of our normal operating procedure. I suspect that Marcy's Law will do the same thing. This, all it does is everybody gears up. Again, the defendant can choose his lawyer. If he can afford to pay one, he can get the best mouthpiece on earth. The victim doesn't have that choice. They've got the prosecutor, and the prosecutor should have certain guidelines set out in the Constitution of how they deal with their client, which in this case is the victim of a crime. I hope nobody on the commission has ever been a victim of a crime. But if you have been, or if you have family that has been, you want to make darn sure that they get the same care and consideration that the defendant gets. Thank you.
Mayor Taylor, Commissioner Powers here.
Powers, yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to go ahead and acknowledge Miss Mary Ann Donovan. She is working directly with Marcy's Law, and she is the best advocate and the best representation that can give us the best presentation. Miss Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor. May I speak?
Yes, ma'am. You have about 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Okay, it won't. Thank you. I just want to start out by saying Commissioner Rice said a lot of things I need to respond to. So first and foremost, she said we already have it. Well, if we already have it, then passing Marcy's Law would not be a huge issue. The reason it's an issue is it adds an enforcement piece. A law without enforcement is merely a suggestion. So of course, we would hope that victims have rights that are enforceable, just as the offender does. And then I have to kind of go on and add what you say, that it's a California, she said it's a California political agenda. Let me remind you that this man, who yes is a billionaire, his sister was murdered. There's no political agenda here. He's not involved in politics. What he is involved in, though, is giving his pain a purpose, and that is honoring his sister who was murdered. And so last week she said something. Let's think about this for a second, you all. Well, I'm going to go with, why do we need to do it in the Constitution? We need to do it in the Constitution because a statute and a constitution right is not equal. Offenders have constitutional rights. If you pass something in the statute and it goes to court, she knows that the offender's rights will be held at a higher level because it's a constitutional right as opposed to a statutory law. And so she knows, as a former DA, that's not correct. And then let me add, she's a former district attorney. We have a former district attorney who said to us last week, me being one of those people, who my fiance was murdered. And we had a former district attorney say, we don't need to equalize the rights for victims because the offender's life is on the line.
Donovan,
so think about
Ms. Marion, let's skip to the point. Let's don't bring up personalities in, okay?
Well, no, that's important because the offender's life is on the line. I'm telling you why we need it. Okay. The point being is if we have district attorneys arguing offenders' rights, then all the more reason why a victim would need to have some right that protects. If there's a district attorney who's not literally advocating on their behalf, they need the ability to raise their hand and have a voice in court. That's the point that I was making, is that we don't always have a district attorney who is doing what's in the best interest of the victim. And so Marcy's Law is very important. Again, if we're going to give it to offenders, we should give it to victims. And when we talk about cost, you all, if we're already doing it, then what additional cost is there? Now, there are some courts that aren't covered right now. You all, do you know that if you're a victim of a crime by juvenile court does not give you any notification, any rights at all. You're not in that 1998 Bill of Rights. General Sessions Court, stalking is including in that, some domestic violence, there's some sexual aggravated rape, there's
cases in General Sessions Court that aren't attached to that victim's Bill of Rights. So why do we need this? Because all victims deserve it. Can you imagine being a victim of a crime and someone saying those rights don't cover you, or I'm sorry, we messed up, we don't have time? And so we're not doing over hearing, so to speak. I want you all to know that, first of all, let me just go on to say that the committee voted on the state level, and Marcy's Law this year in committee died with a vote of 6-5. 3 of those members who voted in favor of it are from West Tennessee. G.A. Hardaway from Memphis, Bruce Griffey from Henry County, and then Deborah Moody from Tipton County. So thankfully, West Tennessee is sending a strong message that they want this. They'll come back next year, so we have an opportunity, which is why we want them to know that you all support this. We want Representative Gant to know that. We want Senator Page-Wiley to know that. And so I'm going to ask that you all vote on this again. Now, as far as the timing is concerned, think about this. Why would we shut down victims' rights right out of the gate when we can start having the conversation now, and over a 6-year period of time, we can talk about implementation? The General Assembly gets to decide what that looks like. It may not be a do-over. It's going to be whatever the General Assembly wants. And they need to know that your support is behind victims. And then 6 or 7 years from now, the biggest concern is the cost for notification. I would imagine we'll have electronic notification at that point. We already have it now. They're already looking into the cost of that now. So just know that while we think and hope district attorneys will do the right thing, you need to know that sometimes that's not always the case. And sometimes they don't advocate for the victim. We've heard that before. Now we've heard it firsthand. And so I'm going to ask that you all vote to support Marcy's Law. It's not Marcy's Law. You're voting to support the victims within Tennessee. And you want our lawmakers to know that Fayette County stands behind victims. And do we need to equalize rights? Yes, we need to equalize rights, because my fiance died and was murdered. I didn't have rights. And so I am going to ask that you really stop and think about all that we've heard, and stop and think about, if your wife, mother, father, or child was murdered, what if someone didn't include you in the process? Would you want this law to be in place?
Thank you. Thank you much. Commissioners, anybody else got any comments?
Mayor Ben Farley here.
Okay.
Just two things. The only district attorney I've heard from is Miss Rice, who is opposed to it, which carries a lot of weight with me. But I still haven't decided on voting. But I wish we had more, or at least the district attorney group that they spoke of earlier could report to us on it. But I guess we're going to vote on it tonight, no matter what. The other thing is, Mr. Leggett quoted the Miranda rights as a small thing. That was a monumental change in policing, argued in all the courts of the United States, with hundreds of cases that were thrown out and were totally opposed by most police departments at the time. It's still taught in law schools about that. So it was a big change, and that's what we're voting on tonight, is a big change. That's my 2 cents.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Norton.
Hold on, Commissioner Rice, Ms. Norton, Commissioner Norton.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we hashed this out in committee, and I pointed out then that we are very, very blessed that we have in committee a house full of law enforcement, from Ms. Rice. I think the only one that hadn't actually made a career out of it was Commissioner Perkins. Everybody else in that committee is law enforcement. Constitutions at times need to be changed. They're not living, breathing documents. I realize that. But I might remind a lot of people here that there's some people sitting on this commission that without Constitution amendments probably wouldn't be here today, sitting on this commission. So when I hear Ms. Rice say toying around with the Constitution, that kind of sets the hair up on the back of my neck a little bit. We're not toying here. This isn't a game. I mean, it hasn't been that long ago that women didn't have the right to vote. But because of the Constitution amendment, they now have that right. I don't want to go down in history as saying that one victim, whoever that victim is, because we failed to protect them. That's our duty. We failed to protect them by not notifying them that the very person that tried to kill them is now out, and they had no idea that they were out. They had no way of knowing. We have laws and rules and everything else in law enforcement that tells us in a domestic violence case, for example, when the subject is let out of jail, the victim gets notified. Well, that'd be nice if it actually worked that way. They try to do it. The jail tries to make notification, but I think we need to go one step further. If you don't get them, if you can't notify them, then put some kind of punitive action in there to bolster the attempts, perhaps. Our commission is depending on us as the committee members to dig into this and look at it and make a recommendation. I think we sounded off appropriately. From what I can garner in all the language that I've read, and I've been looking at this pretty heavy, the only ones that I've seen that may be against this are the ones that's going to have to do the work. That's the ones that's really pushing against it. And I'm going to support this thing. I hope the rest of the commission is going to honor the committee that voted to put this through to you with a favorable recommendation. As Commissioner Leggett said, I've looked in the eyes. I've held them. I've cried with them. I've done it all. I've done things that maybe some people should never have to do. But victims have absolute rights, and it's our job as legislators to see to it that that happens. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold on, Commissioner Rice. I'm trying to make sure everybody gets a bite at the apple before we come back around again. Is there anybody else who wants to speak before we go on? Commissioner Goodrow?
Just want people to know that victims' rights and the support of it is not a stunt. It is something that is needed. You know, in the last 10 or 15 years, prosecutions, the district attorneys are supposed to be looking at victim-centered. That's the new term that came about. And when I was an investigator in the Sex Crimes Bureau, that's what we did. We were victim-centered, and we do not need to leave the victims behind once we get their statement. We need to follow through. And I think Commissioner Norton's right. I think the folks that are screaming the loudest about not having this are the ones that don't want to do it. It takes effort to do the right thing. You know, the district attorney's office should have victim advocates on staff anyway. Some of the large ones do. I know Shelby County does. And when I worked in sex crimes and we had a victim, we assigned, or a victim advocate was assigned to them. I don't think that is throughout the state. But nobody's toying with the Constitution. This is absolutely necessary. As quickly as a law can be put in to the code, it can be taken out. And if it has no teeth, then like Ms. Donovan said, it's just a suggestion. Constitutional amendment is necessary. We would not be the first state to do this. There are other states that have adopted Marcy's law, and it matters not who is pushing it or what state it originated. Marcy's law on its merits is worthy of the constitutional amendment. And like I said, we wouldn't be the first state. Florida has it today. Other states around us have it. This is not a novel idea. It's been adopted. And I totally support this. I've seen where victims have been left behind working in the Sex Crimes Bureau, where you think you've got a suspect charge, led down, and neither you, me, the investigator, or the victim was aware of it. And now it's pled down to a charge where they're not even put on a sex offenders list. And the victim had no voice. How frustrating is that? So I would encourage everyone to look at this and see it from a victim standpoint and not administrative one. And please support the resolution to support Marcy's law.
Okay. Thank you. Any other commissioners?
Mayor Taylor.
Okay, just 1 second. Anybody, nobody else? I think Commissioner Rice actually wanted, Commissioner Powers, I think Commissioner Rice wanted real quick, and then I'll be back to you.
Yes.
Mr. Rice, a rebuttal, so it's a short time.
Yes. A few other states have adopted this. I think 13 or 14 of them, and a couple of them have already had problems through court, and this has been declared unconstitutional, I guess, due to some procedural things. And some other states are having difficulty with this because the provisions are causing people who have been arrested to spend time in jail waiting for victims to be notified before they can get bail set. So there are problems with this. Another problem is that this language regarding enforcement is not specific. In the example that Commissioner Norton gave about someone not being notified, I believe, it's not clear. Would you sue the police department that failed to notify somebody that someone was out of jail? I mean, it's just not clear. Now, all DAs have victim witness coordinators in their offices, at least one in every district. And those have been in place since 1998 or soon after, when the constitutional amendment was passed in 1998. I just wanted to clear up those. Oh, and Commissioner Farley, I believe, asked about the district attorney's conference. They are opposed to it, and they are working in Nashville on that. And I think, there are negotiations with the group that is sponsoring this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Powers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I simply just want to say the reason why I'm supporting is it's but by the grace of God that none of us have been in the position that Ms. Donovan is in. But by the grace of God, I've not been a victim, but it could happen. And my question also is, why should we wait just because it's not happening here in Fayette County? Taking a wait and see attitude, I think it's an opportunity for us to lead by example. And also regarding specifics, as Ms. Donovan said, This is a 6-year process minimum. It has to pass this legislature. Since it didn't pass this year, it's got to go through next year and get a majority vote and vote in both chambers. And then it has 2 more years and has to get a supermajority vote before it will even end up on, at the earliest, gubernatorial ballot 2026. So, and as Ms. Donovan said, once it's a constitutional, in addition to the current constitutional amendment, then the legislature will work out all the details. So to sit here and cut the legs off at the very beginning of the process when it's there, nothing is being decided. All I've asked is that our group take the time and send our voice on behalf of our constituents to our Representative Gant and Senator Wally, that we are in support of this advancing forward. Thank you.
Folks, I think we've had pretty good discussion here tonight. We're going to go ahead and call the roll on this. If you're in favor of the resolution, please vote yes. If you're against it, please vote no. Commissioner Dacus?
I'd like to pass.
Commissioner Farley?
First political thing I've ever done in 7 years. I'll vote yes.
All right, Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Gordon?
No.
Sir?
No.
No? Okay. Commissioner Leggett?
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard?
No.
No? Okay. Commissioner Logan?
No.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
No.
Commissioner Parkins?
No.
Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves?
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves?
I'm a pass.
Commissioner Betsy Rice?
No.
Commissioner Ray Seals?
No.
Sir? Commissioner Seals?
No.
No. Commissioner Robert Seals?
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins? Commissioner Watkins?
No.
No? Okay. Does anyone wish to change their vote?
Yes, sir. I'd like to change my vote to no.
Okay. Commissioner Farley would change his vote to no. Okay. Okay, the count is 7 in favor, 9 against, and 2 abstentions. The motion fails for lack of majority. Next item on the agenda tonight is Budget Committee. Commissioner German.
Excuse me, point of order. Mayor Taylor.
Sir, hold on just a second. Which commissioner?
Goodrow.
Commissioner Goodrow?
How many was in favor?
I've got 7 in favor, 9 against, and 2 abstentions.
Okay, I had a little more than that as I wrote down.
Would you like me to go through my list?
Please.
Okay. According to my list, Commissioner Dacus abstained. Commissioner Farley voted no. Commissioner German voted yes. Commissioner Goodrow voted yes. Commissioner Jordan voted no. Commissioner Leggett voted yes. Commissioner Lillard voted no. Commissioner Logan voted no. Commissioner Norton voted yes. Commissioner Oglesby voted no. Commissioner Perkins voted no. Commissioner Powers voted yes. Commissioner Dale Reeves voted yes. Commissioner Steve Reeves abstained. Commissioner Betsy Rice voted no. Commissioner Ray Seals voted no. Commissioner Robert Seals voted yes. Commissioner Larry Watkins voted no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Right. Well, I'll let victims know. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, next item is Commissioner German, Budget Committee.
Okay, we met on April the 13th. The commissioners at present was Commissioner Steve Reeves, Logan, Oglesby, Farley, Dacus, Rice, and German. I'm not going to read the minutes. Time we go through the agenda tonight, we'll cover everything that was in the minutes. 6.2, first budget amendments, Fund 101, General Fund, miscellaneous year-end cleanup. Several pages of it. It will be a hit to the fund balance of $117,700. We had 3 departments that wanted some adjustments to theirs since our budget meeting. They were Chancery Court, Health Department, Soil Conservation, but there was no change in the money with them. So other than them 3, the budget committee did approve them. So I'll make a motion that we approve it all.
Okay. Motion is made by Commissioner German. Your second.
Dacus, second.
Okay. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Sills,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against.
6.3 is a budget amendment from the county clerk. She wants to move $2,036 from a reserve account to office supplies, no change in the fund balance, approved by the budget committee. I make a motion, we approve it.
Second, Farley.
Motion is made by Commissioner German, second Commissioner Farley. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice, I don't see Commissioner Rice on at the moment.
She's on. She's muted.
It's Betsy.
Yes. I'm not sure what we're voting on. I had something going on in my house.
All right, this is a budget amendment for the clerk's office. He's asking for some additional funds out of reserve.
Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals.
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against.
6.4 budget amendment. This amendment moves $4,547 from the Victims Assistant Revenue Account to the contract we have with Carl Perkins Center. No change in the fund balance. Approved by the Budget Committee. I make a motion, we approve it.
Reeves, second.
Made by Commissioner German, second by Commissioner Steve Reeves. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair Watkins.
Yeah.
18 in favor, none against. Motion passes.
6.5, General Fund 101, this budget amendment moves $50,915 to legal services account so that the county attorney can be paid for legal services performed on several cases over the last 3 years. This will come out of the fund balance. It was approved by the Budget Committee. I'll make a motion, we approve it.
Okay, motion's made. There's a second.
Could I have a- This is, which budget number is this? What line?
This
It's one for-
is 10.3.6.5 is the budget amendment number. And give me 1 second.
Is this number 14?
And it's on page 104.
Okay, this is the budget amendment for attorney legal fees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
1 second before we go any further. Commissioner German, you made the motion. Who seconded this?
Logan.
Commissioner Logan, thank you. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Leggett,
did I understand Commissioner German, this is over 3 years?
it is. And I'll give you some of the background on it. Some of it were some cases that were ongoing and they rolled from 1 year to the next. Got the report here. I can sort of give you a rundown real quick on the cases. Some of them are some of the dog pound issues we were talking about. One is the case that we're currently under with the Allison. With the trying to get folks out.
With the what? I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
The firm who's in our building that we're trying to evict. That one. We've had 2 cases. I believe Mr. Rosser's on. He can probably summarize a couple of them real quick. And then there is a couple of zoning cases we had to take to General Sessions Court to see to enforce the zoning laws. So this is over the last 3 years. Try and get this cleaned up. I think he's to his credit, he's been after me for the last little while to sort of get this taken care of. So I've been trying to see if we can make it work, but we need to ask for the funding to take care of this. This will bring us up to date, if I'm not mistaken.
My question is, what does his salary cover?
His salary covers any sort of consultations, anything, basically anything out of court. So if the sheriff, myself, any elected officials, the planning office, they have to go for consultations on any sort of issues, drafting resolutions, any sort of review of any sort of laws that are being proposed, those, and that research comes under his standard fee or standard office. If we have to go to court and he represents us, then those are additional costs by the private act.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Motion's made, seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes, 18 in favor, none against.
All right, 6.6, sheriff's vehicles. This amendment moves $2,000 to motor vehicles account under the sheriff's department. This money is needed to finish out some of our used vehicle purchases. Capital projects fund balance will be reduced by $2,000. It was approved by the Budget Committee. I make a motion, we approve it.
Oglesby seconds.
Okay, motion's made by Commissioner German, second by Commissioner Oglesby. This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jordan. Sir? Yes, okay. Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins, Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Seals,
Yes.
okay, Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against.
All right, 6.7, Capital Projects Fund 171. What this amendment does is place the funding and expenditures in the correct place to disperse when the 6 fire vehicles are purchased. There's no change to the fund balance. This revenue will come from the bonds that will be sold, and this was approved by the Budget Committee. I make a motion, we approve it.
Okay.
Norton, second.
Motion's made by Commissioner German, second by Commissioner Norton. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard, Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals, Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against.
6.8 is a HUD grant, Capital Projects Fund 175. This amendment places the funds for the pass-through grant that's been awarded to the Memphis Contract Packaging in the correct account so the funds can be dispersed. It was approved by the Development Committee and also approved by the Budget Committee. I make a motion, we approve it.
Oglesby seconds.
Motion's made by Commissioner German, second by Commissioner Oglesby. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against.
All right, 6.9. This is a resolution that's going to allow us to do what we're doing with the bonds and the fire equipment. It allows the county to proceed with the general obligation bond sale for the purchase of the new fire trucks approved by the Budget Committee. I make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second that, Commissioner Sills.
Motion is made by Commissioner German, second by Commissioner Robert Sills. This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Sills,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against.
All right, 6.10. This is a confirmation of our retirement funds. Approval of this allows the county to match the employees' portion for retirement at 3.55%. We're only really required to do it at 0.75, but that's just kicking the can down the road. So the 3.55 will fully fund our portion of the retirement. So this was approved by the budget committee. I make a motion, we approve it.
Commissioner German made the motion, second by Commissioner Oglesby. This is getting a roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Sills,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against.
All right, Mayor, on this, these next four under the airport, can we do that all under one or?
I would appreciate it.
Okay. Well, this went before the development committee and you've got everything in the minutes, what we're doing here. Hangar lighting, tenant fuel discount, contract fuel pricing. Mr. Bliss wants to have the permission to plan a fall event out there. There's actually another one that was in our minutes that we approved. It's not on the agenda tonight. That was a fuel rewards program also. And all of these programs that Mr. Bliss has recommended, most of them are only for 6 months for trial basis. They did go through development committee and pass, and the budget committee looked at all of them and passed unanimously. So I make a motion that we approve all of them under the airport.
Commissioner Powers, second.
Motion made by Commissioner German, second Commissioner Powers.
Commissioner Norton.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to know if I'm reading this correctly, the hangar lights that are there now, how much do those things cost? Is Mr. Bliss around where he could provide an answer for that?
He is actually on. Rusty?
Yes, I'm here, but those hangar lights were installed when the hangars were built approximately 12 years ago. And I wasn't there and I'm not real familiar with the cost of the lights themselves.
Okay, the ones that you're wanting to replace them with, what do they cost?
They're about $200 each.
There's
Mr.
three.
Chairman, is there a reason why we need to pour mouth to the tenants?
And there's three of them.
There's three
Do
of
we
them.
need, do we need to go pour mouthing to the renters?
Well, this is
to get some lights to put into place.
The lights are currently now, Mr. Bliss, tell me if I'm wrong, is all the lights currently working? This is sort of a convenience for the tenants as well as somewhat a little bit of a savings for us.
Well, it's a combination of both. It's a combination of some savings because the amperage use is much lower, but also the mercury vapor lights. Anybody that's got a mercury vapor light in their backyard or on the farm, once they extinguish, it takes several minutes for them to relight. Well, all the lights in the hangars are on timers. And I encourage my tenants not to override those timers by putting a mechanical wrench on there to keep them from ticking down to the 0 minutes. So it enables them, if the power goes out or the lights go out, they can relight the LED light immediately instead of having to wait the 10 or 15 minutes that we require on these mercury vapor lights. That's one advantage. The second advantage would be the power consumption. We would reduce the power consumption almost by half.
Right. I understand all that. I'm concerned that we're going out to our tenants who are they're paying rent there.
That's correct.
And now we're asking them to go in their pockets and buy lights for our building.
That's correct.
And this is
Mr.
something.
Chairman, is there not room somewhere to purchase these lights?
This is not a mandated thing. All the lights are currently working. If there are out any, we would replace them. This is a convenience for them. Some of them have actually approached Mr. Bliss. Rusty, tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct.
To actually have this done and that they would pay for it.
Yes, this is actually initiated by the tenants. They said, would there be an opportunity to replace these mercury vapor lights with an LED light? And I approached Mr. Mayor about that, and this is kind of the avenue that we have gone.
Okay, well, I'm all for it. I had a general question there. What I just didn't understand why, $200. I'd almost buy one of them for you.
Well,
it's $600 worth of lights that go into this, plus 150 of whatever it takes to wire it up.
Right, and as our lights, when they break or something like that, I've been replacing them with LED lights.
That's all I had, man.
Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate it. That was a good question.
Any other questions? Okay. Motion by Commissioner German, second by Commissioner Powers to address not only the lights, but definitely the fuel proposals that will, each of the fuel proposals will last 6 months as a trial basis. This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus?
Yes.
Commissioner Farley?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan? Commissioner Leggett?
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard? Commissioner Lillard?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Logan?
Yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins? Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves?
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves?
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice?
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals?
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals?
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins?
Yeah.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against.
Okay, our last item is the county attorney contract. I don't think anybody has that unless they got an email late this afternoon. I've got mine before me. Looks like the annual salary is $76,411.92 per year. And then if, like the mayor said, if there's some extra hours that have to be billed to us, it's going to be set at $162.84. Looks like the county is, the attorney is allowed to participate in the county's health group plan if he so desires. The term is only 1 year at a time. That's pretty well the main things of it, Mayor, that I got out of it. I guess I'll make a motion. We approve it. The budget committee did approve it. I'll make a motion to approve it, and then we can discuss it.
Norton,
Commissioner German, do you hear a second?
Norton.
Commissioner Norton? Second, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I've got some questions.
Okay.
What's his salary right now?
It was 76,000 is what the 76,000. I don't have that in front of me right now.
In the contract, it says 76,411.
Right.
Is that his salary now? Or
that's where he came in from the end of last year. Yes.
What's that?
Yes, sir. Correct. As at the end of December, that was a salary, and we continued it forward.
Okay.
The past practice over the last several years is that if a cost of living is offered, that it would be adjusted at the same time as the employee salaries would be adjusted.
Well, so I guess I have a problem with a pay raise in the middle of his contract. I mean, if we want to give him a raise, it should be in his contract. Because we could do a contract at a certain amount, and then 6 months later he gets a raise, and then it gets a raise every 6 months. Now that may not be the case at this time, but if he wants,
just
he's
make
a
sure.
contract,
just
not
make
an employee.
Okay, just so we're on the same page. The 76 started last July, I believe, so it's continuing forward. So if you continue the practice as the last several contracts with him have been, the cost of living would start July 1 of this year. So it's from a July to a June timeframe.
Don't understand the reason for a cost of living when you do a yearly contract. I don't understand why there's a cost of living that comes in midway in his contract. This should already be factored in.
We can do that. It was just practice that was adopted simply because it fell in with the rest of the employees.
But he's a contract employee, not a regular employee.
Well, this one, the way the
other employees aren't on contract.
Yeah, the way the private act reads, it's ambiguous. You can interpret it either way. Let's put it that way, as to whether it could be a contract or as an employee. This one reads very much as an employee contract, which is the way it's been done the last several years. Match the Social Security and Medicare, and he is also eligible for the retirement system. The health insurance that is in there would be at his expense totally, as it reads in the contract. So if he chose to take it, he's not currently on it, but if he chose to take it, the cost he would bear.
Yeah, you can go ahead and fix me.
Given the wording at number 10, I'm assuming that was not in the contract last year.
So let me bring up the wording. Give me 1 second, please. I think it's the same contract, same wording. I may be incorrect on that. Second, please. Sure, let me, if you can bear with me, if somebody's got it in front of them, if they'd answer the question. If not, give me just a second, because I emailed it out. I'm gonna have to pull up the email to pull it down. I did not bring a hard copy with me.
Mayor, maybe next year, this probably ought to go through personnel to vet some of these questions, and that might make it a little easier.
Yeah. Probably need to rewrite our rules a little bit. Personnel just generally handles, it's
that's right. That's right.
But I don't disagree with you. And we're probably going to do this in November of this next year. Have this out of the way. 1 second, please. Okay.
What are you looking for last year?
You're looking for, I think he asked for number 10, pay raises. County has approved pay raises for all county employees, which included the county attorney. In the past, the county pay raise was delayed because of his contract. a little bit of commentary there. The parties there agree that the county employees are granted pay raise during the term of the agreement. The county attorneys included in the pay raises. The county attorneys' salaries will be increased, being effective the same date as other county employees. That's pretty much, I think that's pretty much what I described a minute ago, that it would start, it goes from a July 1, for lack of a better word, to a June, if he actually is elected the succeeding year. Of course, this is a January to December term. So that was the reason, but we did this so we follow the employee cycle.
My question was last year's, was number 10 included in last year's
Yes, sir.
contract?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, do we not have to put this out for bid or proposal since it's $76,000?
No, sir. You elected county attorney, and then by the private act, a contract's supposed to be negotiated and brought back.
Okay. Okay.
So we're following the rules such as they are.
Mr. Mayor, I call for a vote.
Look it up. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow. Commissioner Goodrow?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett?
No.
Commissioner Lillard?
Yes.
Commissioner Logan?
Yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Powers?
Abstain.
Commissioner Dale Reeves?
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves?
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice? Commissioner Ray Seals?
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals?
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins?
Yes.
Okay. Motion is 15 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstained. Motion passed.
All right, Mayor, the only thing that we had in our minutes that's not on the agenda tonight that hadn't already been discussed, we looked at 2 of the nonprofits. Do you need any action on that tonight?
No, sir. What we're going to do, we'll bring those forward and talk about it more as we go through the budget process. I think you heard them and their request was made. Basically, just for the lack of rest of the committee is that they were a recommendation that they be left at what they were the previous year. Repeated literacy, Miss Nancy Johnson and I will get together sometime shortly. There's enough, I'm hoping there's enough CARES money out there that we can find some help for. And so we'll work that angle out for them.
That's all I had then, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Folks, let's see, I'll make sure I've got this in the packet. We've got a couple of things under new business I'd like to talk about. Give me 1 second, please.
I thought you might be tired of sitting in that hard chair.
MCP, who we just did a budget amendment for, a pass-through grant, it was $500,000. That was awarded to them for a fast track grant for the state of Tennessee. And the way they do their grants is they award it to a local agency, county government or city government, and then they act as a pass-through to the entity. The MCP has far exceeded exactly what they were going to do. Originally proposed, the state, it was awarded them another $400,000. And all that's verbal, is moving through the process in Nashville. The company has already spent the funds. So what I'm proposing tonight is basically sort of get ahead of the curve. So when the funds are actually brought in, that we'll be able to transfer the funds out. They'll be deposited into our account straight in. And if we have the appropriate expenditure in the right place, when those funds come in, we can pass those on to the MCP. I would like for y'all to consider allowing me to do that. It's a little bit out of the norm, but They were actually awarded this money, I think sometime last August. And it's been a while. They've been struggling to see if they can get it. And I think we've actually gotten to the point where we can pass this money on to them. So that's my request to you.
I move this be allowed, Oglesby.
Okay.
Powers, second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Oglesby, seconded by Commissioner Powers. Roll call vote. Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner Berman,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Larry Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against. Thank you all very much for that. The next item I've got on the agenda tonight, there are two budget amendments that I sent out later this afternoon. And I gave a little bit of narrative, but let me sort of restate it. These are initially sort of targeted for next month when we normally do it. The years past, we've had audit findings because an employee will leave in May or June. Their salary, their vacation days and their sick time will probably be used, which would overspend that line item if there has to be a person to fill in for it, either part-time or if somebody's hired. So what we've done the last several years is basically take a month's worth of salary and stick it in that line item. Now this inflates it, but it's not intended to be spent. It's just a matter to avoid an audit finding. Whereas at the end of last calendar year, 2020, we were notified that the comptroller will start requiring their approval before any budget amendments. We didn't get our January budget amendments back from them until late March. And we've got to have approval from the state before we can actually implement these. So in an abundance of caution, and since these are already been prepared by Mr. Charles in my office, that I would like to go ahead and move forward with this. I can understand if you'd like to wait till next month, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't trust the state to send them back on time. This is something like we've done for the last several years, and I'm not trying to pad anybody's budget. I'm trying to avoid some audit findings, and that's the long and short of it. Happy to answer any questions if you don't mind.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I remember we have done this in the past, that figure is just out there so that we do know that that's the obligation in the future, but it does not change our budgets really, just on paper.
Yes, sir.
But I did not get that email. Can you just say what the numbers are? We always do know what that number is.
Yes, sir. Be happy to.
Was it in the email? Was a number in there?
It was in the email. I can't remember. It came in with the county, the school board packet, or whether it came in with the contract. But let me go over them real quickly. There are two of them. One was for General Fund 101. And this went through all the different departments. The long story short, this would put $923,000 into salary line items so that to take care of any contingencies. And in Fund 116, that would put $23,600 in salary line items. Now, I want to emphasize this is not to be spent unless somebody actually leaves. And this is sort of overkill, but it's been very effective in the last several years for folks who've left and we didn't know about it until the last minute, or there was not a way to avoid hiring a temp in there.
I make a motion, we approve it.
Second. Farley.
Okay. Commissioner German, and trying to think if I can get away with one vote on both of these. Does anyone have a problem with me voting on voting both of these at the same time?
No. I make that motion.
No.
Okay. And Commissioner Farley, I believe, second that, if I'm correct. Okay, this is on Budget Amendment 101 and Budget Amendment 116 for the salary adjustments. Roll call vote, Commissioner Dacus,
Yes.
Commissioner Farley,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrow,
Yep. Yes.
Commissioner Jordan. Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner Leggett,
Yes.
Commissioner Lillard,
Yes.
Commissioner Logan,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Oglesby,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers,
Yes.
Commissioner Dale Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Steve Reeves,
Yes.
Commissioner Betsy Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Robert Seals,
Yes.
Commissioner Lael Watkins.
Yes.
Motion passes 18 in favor, none against. Folks, thank y'all very much for that. I don't think I've got anything else for you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, excuse me, I do have one other thing I need to sort of briefly go over. In your packets, your paper packets was the budget. I believe everybody received that. It is the expenditures. It has expenditures and revenue, but I want to emphasize that the revenues on these, because we do not have schools, they're not to turn theirs into May 1. That's by design. And because we are looking at different sales tax, property tax, obligations on debt, how to structure some of these, where the dollars are coming from for each of those has yet to be determined. The expenditures are good, so I don't want to lead you down and say those aren't, but you will see a much different budget when we get through the first week or two in May, because I'll have a little bit more information on what we can and can't do. So if you got any questions on that, please get with me. Like I said, the expenditures are good. If you got some ideas on revenues, I'll be happy to go over those with you. And Charles, I think you're on here somewhere. Am I missing anything on the budget?
No, sir, you're not missing anything on the budget.
Okay. And is there anything else I'm missing? We talked about bringing to the commission.
No, sir, you've covered everything.
Okay. Commissioners, there's any other business to go over?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion's made. Here a second.
Second.
A bunch.
All those in favor, please sign on.